Hey folks, welcome back to Learn from Dad. I'm James. Today we're going to talk about when to change your engine oil. I just got done doing a video on how to change it, got done doing a video on how to check your oil, but when should I change it? That's a big question. And at the end of the day, what are you trying to do? Well, number one, you're trying to prolong the life of that engine, which might be $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in a vehicle, depending on what you drive, and you need to take care of it. But on the flip side, we want to make sure that we don't take care of it so frequently that the cost of caring for it outweighs the benefit. So let's talk about the different opportunities of when should I change it and different metrics people use so you can make a better decision about when to change your engine oil. So if you're like me and drive a vehicle, historically people have used mileage as the main indicator on when to change engine oil. And the main reason for that is it's a really good indicator on what the use of an engine is over a period of time. So at the end of the day, you got to remember, what is the engine oil doing? It's providing lubrication between a bunch of metallic parts, mostly, inside of an engine that are rubbing together at really high speeds and high temperatures. And you're trying to keep those things lubricated to minimize wear. So how can I tell how much that engine has run? Well, there's actually hour meters on lots and lots of different machinery that tells you how much that engine has run, but that's typically, historically, not been present on vehicles. So mileage is a great indicator. So when should I actually change it based on mileage? Now, number one, you need to look in your operator's manual, because over time that number has changed. I can still to this day remember my dad 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, saying 3,000 miles. We got to change our engine oil at 3,000 miles. And that was true 20, 30 years ago. That's what operators' manuals said. When engines ran dirtier, when they carried less oil volume in them, that was the spec. And it's funny because today, the few times that I do go to a place to get my engine oil changed and the sticker says 3,000 miles is when you should come back. But I look in my operator's manual and it says 10 or 12 or 15,000 miles. That's different back then versus today. So first most important thing is check your operator's manual. Now the second thing you can use as an indicator for engine oil change interval is hours. Now, I'd mentioned this previously, that engine hours is a great way to track how much use an engine has actually had on it. So if you think about non-passenger vehicle related things like tractors or bulldozers or generators, things along those lines, they don't drive miles. So if we only based on miles, you'd never change the oil, right? You have to use something that's a better indicator, which is hours of runtime. And if you think about even on mileage, if I drive an average of 40 miles per hour, how do you think they arrive at distances to determine when to change your engine oil? It's all about time. So most modern cars nowadays, if you look in your dash, you'll find a metric for engine hours, such as on my truck has an engine hour indicator. So how do I know how many hours until I change my engine oil? Again, look at your operator's manual. They're going to specify what's right for your vehicle. So the third way to keep track of engine oil maintenance intervals is going to be the service life indicator that your manufacturer has built into most modern cars, such as in your dashboard or computer. And what that's ultimately doing is keeping track of things like mileage, engine hours, maybe even engine load, and other parameters to determine when should you change it. My truck, for example, is my daily driver. I drive to and from work. I take my kids places, but I also do some heavy hauling with some trailers and camper that gives it somewhat of a workout. So this is a great example of, I recently changed the oil in this truck and the service life indicator said about 8 or 9% left. So it was time. Now the mileage that was on that interval was around 14,000 and the engine hours was around 450-ish, which many people will say, wow, that's really pushing it. And I checked my operator's manual, and I have a 6.7 liter Cummins engine, diesel engine in this truck, and the operator's manual from Ram says 15,000 miles or 500 engine hours, or annually. And I was just kind of curious what Cummins said, so I went directly to their website, and sure enough, same exact thing for a 6.7 liter Cummins B engine For a light truck application, 500 hours, 15,000 miles, and also an interesting fact is no engine break-in period or engine break-in oil change. So I was still within all the different specifications for what this truck could handle. Now that may scare some people, and if I said that to my dad, he'd say, should have changed it at 3,000. But the reality is, that's what this vehicle manufacturer said. So imagine if I did an oil change every 3,000 miles instead of somewhat following the manufacturer's recommendations. It probably cost me $125 to $150 in parts when I changed the oil in this truck. So if I did that 5 times as frequently as what the manufacturer said, I would have a significant cost over the life of this vehicle. So there is a delicate balance between changing it frequently enough and changing it so frequently that it becomes a very expensive burden over the life of a vehicle. The fourth different way of indicating when to change your engine oil is going to be time. A lot of manufacturers, whether you're looking at your lawnmower or your vehicle or something like a log splitter, is going to give you some kind of an interval in time. So I mentioned in my truck, it was 500 hours, 15,000 miles, or annually. Now, you can have things like humidity and moisture that could potentially collect in oil over seasonal changes, like where I live at in the Midwest. Things along those lines that drive the reason for that annual oil change. I have a log splitter that I haven't used in 2 years and honestly use it about 2 hours when I do use it. And I'm not going to wait 10 years to change its oil. I try to change it about every time that I use it for those 2 to 5 hours and make sure that I'm prolonging its life. It's a small amount of oil, so it's really not a very big expense, but something else to keep in mind. So how can I really know what I'm doing is good enough? Well, the only way you can really tell how good that engine oil is when you took it out of the vehicle is to do an engine oil analysis. So you can Google this. There's lots of companies that you can send in an oil sample. They'll run an analysis and give an indication of where certain components such as chrome or nickel or coolant or all these different elements might be coming from, and if they think you have a problem or if you change that oil at a good point in time. So that's the only really way to know. Me personally, I follow manufacturers' recommendations. I don't follow necessarily a service provider's recommendation who is a third party and not directly connected to that manufacturer. I work for a manufacturer, I have for quite a while. There's a lot of effort that goes into determining service intervals, so they typically know best. Now, if you want to spend your hard-earned money and do it more frequently, that's perfectly fine. But at least now you have a better understanding of what are the different means you can watch to determine when should I change my engine oil. So, hope you learned something, give you something else to think about. Stop back for the next video. Drop some comments down below. I'm in particular looking forward to the ones from my mechanic friends to say, here's the good and bad things I've seen when it comes to engine oil change intervals. So hope to catch you on the next video. Thanks a lot.